Liz, could you go ahead and call the roll?
Absolutely. Mayor Austin Bonta,
Here.
Council Member Alvarez,
Here.
Council Member Weidenbach,
Here.
Council Member Geis-Hurst,
Here.
Council Member Parnell, Council Member Vasquez,
Here.
Council Member Ambler,
Here.
Council Member Zilli.
Here.
Thank you. Did everyone have a chance to look at the minutes from the last meeting, and is there a motion to approve them?
Motion to approve the minutes from last month.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And it passes. So we've got our new business, tax abatement CF1 approval. Liz, did you want to get into this again? I believe everything's been reviewed, but if you want to go ahead and say your thing.
Okay, this one came in after our council meeting, and looks to be in compliance. Ed, did you have a chance to check it over too?
Yes, I did. It looks fine.
With that in mind, are there any questions? And if there are not, is there a motion and a second to approve?
Make a motion to approve the CF1s as submitted.
I will second them.
We have a motion and we have a second. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that passes. We have a public hearing for the Cumulative Capital Development Fund. Would it be proper, Ed, for me to ask for that to be explained a little bit, and then we open the public hearing?
I think it would be appropriate, and you could do it either way, frankly.
Sure.
Yeah.
Liz, do you want to explain a little bit?
So what the Cumulative Capital Development Fund is a fund that was established, I'm not sure what year, but we have to reestablish it, and we're asking it to be raised to .05. That's the max you can get. It was supposed to be raised in 2022 to that amount, and it was not. It was actually reduced for this year to that, it was raised to .0375 in 2022 for 2023, and then for 2023 to 2024, it was reduced to .0431. So we're asking it to be at the max, and this will be the last year we're going to have to ask for it to be reestablished. Once it's established at .05, then it'll stay at that, unless legislation changes downstate.
With those preliminary remarks, I think it would be appropriate to consider a motion to open the public hearing.
I'll now then go ahead and I'll open the public hearing. And in typical Portage fashion, I'll ask if anyone is here to speak on the Cumulative Capital Development Fund. I'll ask 3 times, and then after 3 times, if nobody comes up to speak, well, then we'll be ready to close. So is there anyone here to speak on the Cumulative Capital Development Fund? Is there anyone here to speak on the Cumulative Capital Development Fund? Is there anyone here to speak on the Cumulative Capital Development Fund? Hearing no comments, I will close the public hearing. And we can begin discussion as needed. Are there any comments or questions from the council?
Yes, only briefly. Excuse me. Do we have, to our knowledge, an idea of the amount that would be generated from the increase in this rate at this point, Madam Clerk Treasurer?
It's estimated to generate $144,000 extra for next year.
Thank you.
Do we know how many taxpayers are not currently at their 1% limit that would then be affected by this?
No, I do not, but I was told by the consultant that it would be a very minimal increase if they're not at their 1%. He believes most of them are at the 1% already.
I assume for the most part it would be businesses that are going to.
Yes,
Face this.
correct.
With that in mind, are there any other questions or comments? And if not, would someone be inclined to make a motion? And Ed, the right term would be motion to adopt, is that correct?
Yes. You have a ordinance that has been prepared, so it'd be a motion to adopt the ordinance.
Okay, so I'll make a motion to adopt the Cumulative Capital Development Fund ordinance as previously read.
I'll second.
We have a motion and we have a second. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? And it passes. We have the introduction of resolutions, Resolution 2403, Carlson Farms Fiscal Plan. This has to do, and Ed, if you're able to give some comment on, essentially, I think just that this was turned in to the council, and I believe people had the opportunity to ask questions via email already. Is that correct?
I'm not aware of that method of communication, but I hope so, because it is an important aspect when you consider expanding the boundaries of the community and what will come from that in terms of revenue and expenses to provide services to that new area. So Dan Bowditch, who had been hired by the city of Portage at the expense of the developer, created this fiscal plan that conforms to the statutory law that requires this body to first adopt the fiscal plan through a resolution that was added to the agenda before the annexation ordinance is considered for adoption.
Gotcha. Would you guys, was there anything that you wanted to say to come up on this? Or, I mean, I think at this point, I mean, it's a pretty standard fiscal plan, and if it was written by Dan Bowditch, I mean, not to put too much of my own opinion on here, but I think it was well done.
We don't have much to say about the fiscal plan because obviously it was prepared by by the consultant who we're paying for. The most important thing about the fiscal plan is 80 acres that we're trying to acquire here is already in the city. This is simply adding 38 acres, and they're not asking for, and I think the fiscal plan, the part I focus on, is what is it going to cost the city? Well, just with services over the first year, it's projected no cost because there's no houses, nothing on the land, it's farmland. And in terms of capital, nothing is anticipated either. That's toward the last end of the report, it's all zeros, so there will be no expenditures. There'll be nominal taxes generated by the assessed value of this land starting out, but our hope is we can work together with the city and produce a plan that will generate significant revenue as built out for the city. But we'd be happy to address any questions that you do have of us on this fiscal plan portion. I assume we'll go through and show you what you want to see when we talk about the annexation, but if you want to see it now, we're happy to do that at this time.
I think that what might be most appropriate would be for us to first take action on the fiscal plan. You know, as noted, the land itself being that it's, you know, farmland, non-developed, without homes, it doesn't incur costs to us, you know, to bring in, and I think acknowledging that would be the appropriate way. I guess the question would be for us is to vote on this resolution, do we still need a motion and a second, or are we able to?
There is a resolution that has been created, a very simple one that simply references the fiscal plan having been reviewed and considered by the Common Council, and the resolution allows for the adoption of that fiscal plan.
Councilman Zilli, would you be comfortable reading that for us?
Sure. Resolution number 24-03, a resolution of the Common Council of the City of Portage, Porter County, Indiana, adopting the fiscal plan for the Carlson Farm annexation. Let the record reflect this has been read in its entirety. Motion to adopt.
We have a motion to adopt. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and we have a second. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
That was an extra aye, so that's good. It passed. Thank you. And then that gets us to our introduction of ordinances. So I believe we did the reestablishment of the cumulative capital rate. So that gets us to ordinance 2414, Carlson Farm annexation. Councilman Alvarez, would you be comfortable reading that?
Ordinance 24-14, an ordinance annexing certain contiguous territory to the city of Portage and declaring the territory to be part of the incorporated jurisdiction and within the city limits of the city of Portage pursuant to Indiana Code 3643. The Carlson Farm, consisting of 38.3678 acres in unincorporated Porter County, Portage Township, generally located at the northeast intersection of County Road North 500 West and County Road 700 North. Let the record show that the ordinance has been read in its entirety.
Thank you, Ferdinand. At this time, I'm going to ask if Dr. Alanes, would you mind coming up? I believe I informed almost everybody in this council. I was calling once I knew that she was coming. I know that you wanted to say a few words because I know that this matters a great deal to the school system.
Sure. Good evening. Thank you so much for allowing me just a moment to share some information with you. I know there's so much to take into consideration as the city is continuing to consider various options as planning is obviously something that is a huge undertaking. I know that there's a significant misconception out there regarding the capacity of the school district. So I did just want to share with all of you that we are not at capacity within Portage Township schools. In fact, we have approximately 2 to 3 at our elementary school classrooms per grade level, and we as a building can handle 4 to 5 at each of the schools. So that's just something to share with you. So in those classrooms, we have upwards of 20 to 25 students in 2 to 3 sections. We would just simply then move to a 4 to 5 section per grade level. The same is true in the middle and high school in different ways. I just wanted to share with you as you plan, of course, knowing that there are so many things you take into account. The school district is adaptable, will continue to be collaborative as we look forward to continuing to partner with you alongside you. But as far as capacity is concerned, I did want to share that with you because I know that's been a concern of the residents. So as far as our ability to take on additional students in the district, we have the capability of doing that.
I really appreciate you coming up, Dr. Alanes. Something that I know with us, all of us got elected in some way by knocking door to door and hearing concerns from people, and people don't always know the difference between the city government and the school government, but we hear a lot about the schools, all sorts of things, and so this conception about where the school system is in terms of numbers versus, where it can go, it's really important that we've got, straightened out. So,
Yes.
And something where we meet. I'm so excited. Our teams, we've been meeting. It feels like every other week, but at least once a month, we've been having some really productive meetings, and I really appreciate the teamwork that we're.
Sure. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I think that something that also should be said, so if you're taking a look at this map, and I appreciate that this is the map given, one of the things that's been brought up about this annexation has to do with the zoning as it comes in. So it will be coming in, if adopted tonight, it will be coming in at R1, which if you take a look, and you can tell what's the north side and what's the south side. But what you'll see is that the north side, would you mind putting like the cursor over the north side? Thank you. That is already in the city, and that is already R1. Penny, do you mind if I use you as an example? Because you live in, which neighborhood are you in? So Penny called me earlier, I called Penny, I'm sorry. And in their conversation that went so long, I thought you called me, sorry. Apparently, that's how I remember it. But you brought up the question of, would an R1 neighborhood look like my neighborhood? No, because R2 is what your neighborhood is. Same with Austin Hills, same with Landmark Acres, same with Capitol Estates. There really is not an R1 neighborhood in the city of Portage, because take any of these newer subdivisions, and the homes have to be further away than any of those, and the lot sizes have to be bigger. There's some other things that come into R1. One thing that I'm not going to spend too much time on is talking about all that, because we know that this developer is not interested in an R1 neighborhood. At least that's been communicated to us pretty clear. If you want to know, we can talk more about why that might be. But understanding that when you have an R1 field in the city, it's basically on holding for the Plan Commission to review, and then the City Council to decide at a future date what it's going to be. So when it comes to this annexation coming in at R1, it's a continuation of what the field already is, and even if somebody really wanted to go for an R1 neighborhood, I would think that it would take a lot more land than just this to make that worthwhile, but I won't put that on the developer to explain. But I just want to make sure that people are aware, because I think that there are people, especially online, and people who've brought up concerns confusing R1 with R2. Because an R2 neighborhood, I mean, could fit here, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just to say that that's not what we're getting just by bringing this into the city with the R1 designation. That said, I'd like to turn it over, I guess, to the council if there's any questions about it in discussion.
On page 15, the layout that I'm looking at, is this because of the cottages and the paired villas? That is, if I'm not mistaken, zoned M1, correct?
That would be if you guys in the future, when they come back, if they come after meeting with the planning department, bringing it to the plan commission, this is their working draft of what they'd like to do. Now, we don't know if this is going to work for a couple of reasons, and I don't mean that as a negative. I mean, we got to consider, what is the street department going to say about the number of cul-de-sacs and the layout of the streets? What is the sanitary going to say about how we put the sewer system in? What is stormwater going to say? And are these potential, you'll see where they've got these ponds, are these really the best places for those ponds? We don't know any of that for sure yet. Now, I don't say that like it's so murky we've got no idea. We know what they intend to do, and we know what we're willing to like work with them on. But it is to say that the first step is that any proposal's got to go through the development and review committee. Then they'll make the decision about when they want to go to the plan commission for a proposed zoning change, either from R1 to one of our other Rs or one of our other codes, or with the planned unit development, which is a completely unique zoning code to a piece of land. And then it goes to you guys, the city council. And then this is where it's really scary for a developer, and honestly kind of scary for you guys, because I know you're all actually, really humble, good people. It's a lot of power, but you guys, as the council, ultimately decide yes to what's proposed or no to what's proposed. I say that because bringing the proposed annexation in is not the same thing as approving what you're seeing on the screen right now. You could, and I'm not saying like, go with this, but you can bring the proposed annexation in as R1, and then it might stay R1 if this council decides to keep it that way. I don't recommend that, but we've got time to talk about that. But I think that what this developer is doing is being very transparent about what they want to do, what they think is a good idea, so that you guys see, the product from the beginning. But I say that because voting no on the annexation doesn't stop this, and voting yes doesn't ensure this. But what voting yes on the annexation does do is it brings it within the city control rather than, let's say, county control. I'm not claiming that they'll just run over to county and be like, hey, we've got a proposal for this half of a neighborhood, can you approve it? But it is a lot smoother to plan it with it all being in the city. Sorry if that was kind of long-winded, but I hope I explained something.
I think all those years on the Plan Commission helped you a lot.
Comes in handy
With
to
the
have a mayor like that
explanations.
sometimes.
Very good, Boston. I thought you explained it very well.
Thank you. I guess with that in mind, we have the developer here, so you guys are free to ask any questions about what they're interested in doing. I just want to stress the difference between bringing in the property into the city as R1 versus the later action of approving some sort of development here.
So I do have a question. Do you have a backup plan, Plan B, if for some reason that this would have, as Mayor Bonta had suggested, if the cul-de-sacs don't match up or the sewer, do you have a contingency plan?
Well, of course, we see the whole process of a PUD, which we are not anticipating going with a straight zoning change. We are anticipating a PUD zoning, which will provide, as I think the mayor called it, almost custom zoning for this particular property, which will address all the lot sizes, the product, the setbacks, all those kind of things. And we intend to work through the Plan Commission on that because that's definitely the most appropriate way to approach a development like this. We do not anticipate no discussion and no amendments to our plan. I mean, the issue of the cul-de-sacs is kind of, we submitted this plan quite a while ago last year, but the cul-de-sacs in themselves, for the most part, really relate more to the configuration of the property. Like as you come to the south in some of those areas, there really isn't any other way to kind of deal with that sawtooth nature of the bottom of it. So that's what's really creating, as opposed to an overwhelming desire that we have for more cul-de-sacs. But I think it's also will be part of the discussion with the streets department and making sure that everybody understands and that we're making provisions and any amendments like that that make sense. I see the whole process as a mosaic of give and take between the city and us to try to come up with the best possible plan. So our backup plan is to, is to work with the city and the staff as well as the plan commission to come up with a PUD plan that works. We're going to make a submittal, which will be similar to this, but prior to that, we're anticipating a meeting with the planning department and going through the, kind of going through the steps as to making sure that we're providing all the information we need to. We have already had our engineers looking at stormwater management. Those ponds are not just cartoons that they're sitting somewhere. That was based on some engineering.
And I by no
review ahead
means
of
meant to
time.
imply that it was.
No, but
yeah.
I'm saying it's,
Yeah.
Where the sanitary sewer connections will be, where there's a lift station required, things like that. We've looked at a lot of that ahead of time. And so with the, again, as was said, the intent of being transparent as far as what our expectations are. Now, if you were to ask me, if you all said, well, there's 320 homes on there, we feel like more like it's 160, okay? If you would tell me that tonight, then we would not have a backup plan, just to be frank. But if you're talking about, are we willing to work with the plan commission and the staff and the council to tweak the plan and make sure that it makes sense for everybody? Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
Colin, you look like you want to say something. No worries. I'd just like to add too, because I know that, I've said some things about neighborhoods in the past, and I don't mean to recant anything said. The concerns that I've had in the past are certainly, I think, valid, in terms of how we plan for neighborhoods and how we service them. And certainly, like, we've approved a fiscal plan based on it being R1, but certainly the needs of the community is going to change if you approve either something that's got multifamily or cottage homes or even single family on a space that's going to demand more in service. State law, and I've discussed this with I think everybody on the council in some capacity, in the recent years, state law has created some avenues for cities to gain more money out of a neighborhood than the law previously allowed for. Now that's true for a time, and we're going to be discussing that through this summer about some of the ways we might be able to take advantage of that to be able to better fund public safety, better fund police. But I think the question of not just this neighborhood, but other ones that might get proposed is going to run alongside that is, can we show that we can financially support the city with these neighborhoods coming in? And again, I know that I've spoken with the developer about that before. I've also spoken with Dr. Alanes about that. One thing we also want to be mindful of as it impacts the school, as noted, the schools they are not at capacity. School systems in Indiana get a greater amount of their funding now by head count than by what they get from the property taxes. And what they get from the property taxes is more limited on what they can spend that for. So on one end, I know that people like single family, and there's a lot of great benefits to it, but at the same time, we also got to consider making sure that we've got homes that younger families can afford so that they're bringing kids into the school system. That's a conversation we're having with the school system, as we go. It's part of that collaborative partnership that we're building here. I say that because in and of itself, what we're looking at here is not inherently bad or good, but it's really important that we have a plan to address it, But I guess to start right now, it's a blank slate and it's R1, and it can stay R1 for a long time based on what this council does. I only say that because I'd like to ideally get the ball rolling and see what we come up with rather than end here, Do we have any other questions for the developer? And if not, is anyone inclined to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to adopt.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed?
Nay.
And it passes. Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Any matters not already considered by the council? Hearing none, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.